As we build a project, you can follow along in a tool that we call Workspaces. Let's take a few minutes to learn about Workspaces and see what it can do. To open a workspace, just click the button next to this video. This will allow you to open a new workspace where you can type your code and build the project. Your workspace will probably look the same as mine, but if it doesn't, don't worry. It just means that Workspaces has been updated since this video was created, and you're using the latest and greatest version. It should still work the same and allow you to follow along. I'm going to switch over to a second workspace that I have open in another browser tab. This has the completed project, and it's what your workspace will look like when you finish coding this entire website. Let's take a quick tour of the interface and get familiar. The file tree on the left lists all of our files and folders in the project. We can click on one of these files to bring it up in the editor. We can also click the right mouse button to bring up a context menu, which allows us to create new files, delete files, and generally make changes to the directory structure. I can also click and drag files to put them in other folders. I can also click on these triangles to the left of folders to open and close them and see the contents of the folder. For now, I'm going to switch back over to my blank workspace. At this point, you should start following along because each video builds on one another, and you might be confused if you start from somewhere in the middle. When you're ready, create a new file and call it index.html. You can do this by right-clicking and selecting New File. Alternatively, you can go to the File menu and select New File. Both will work exactly the same. Once you've created your file, call it index.html and hit Enter. If you accidentally hit Enter before naming your file, just right-click on it and select Rename, and it will allow you to go ahead and rename your file. Once you've typed that in, just hit Enter. You'll notice that when I hit Enter, Workspaces automatically opens up the file in the text editing area. This is where I can make modifications to the file, and it's basically where we'll build out our site. Now, I'm going to type an H1 element. Workspaces has a feature called code completion. When I type the first H1 tag, it automatically closes the element for me and moves the insertion point between the opening and closing tags. This allows me to work more quickly because I'm typing less code. Between the tags, I'm going to type my name, but you should go ahead and type your own name. Now, let's save the file. We're going to save files very frequently, so it's best to learn the shortcut key for this. On a Mac, simply press Command S to save the file. On Windows, press Control S. Right now, there's a little orange dot next to the file, meaning it's unsaved. When I save it by hitting the shortcut key, the dot disappears and my changes have been saved. Now, we're ready to preview our web page. I'm going to open up the preview area by clicking this icon in the upper right corner. And just like that, we can see what our H1 element looks like in a web browser. When I make changes to the file and save them, you can see the changes in the preview area immediately. Let's try changing the name here to something else. So I'm going to highlight my name, and then I'm going to type something else. When I hit the Save keyboard shortcut, we can switch over to our preview and click Refresh, and you'll see that something else now appears in the browser. Now, let's switch back to our workspace and undo these changes. You may need to undo things frequently, so it's also best to learn the keyboard shortcut for this. On a Mac, just hit Command-Z. On Windows, you can press Control-Z. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut to undo our changes. Then I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut to save. And finally, I'm going to switch back to our workspace. And we need to refresh the page to see our changes. I could just click on the refresh icon here, but instead, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut to refresh because once again, refreshing the page is also something you're going to do frequently. To refresh on a Mac, just hit Command-R. To refresh on Windows, hit Control-R. I'm going to refresh our page here, and as you can see, our changes have been reverted. Workspaces has a lot more to offer, but that covers the basics. I recommend you play around with Workspaces to get familiar with the interface. As you work through projects on Treehouse, you'll learn about specific features of Workspaces as you need to use them.